The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. Check us out at cesnrg.com. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, so much solar and storage news coming your way on the Solar Podcast and always on the Clean Power Hour. So I have some great announcements about upcoming events on the Solar Podcast. Solar powered Mars helicopter is launching anytime now, and we want to see that footage. It'll be the first fly on a foreign body, so it's going to be awesome. And do you want to get paid to plug in your car? I know I do. I know John does. And John Weaver thinks there's going to be a solar greenhouse revolution. I think he might be smoking something. Welcome to the show, commercial solar guy, John Weaver.
Hello, Timothy. Yep. I do think there's going to be a solar greenhouse revolution. And I also think that there's going to be a helicopter flying on Mars that's powered by solar electricity and has lithium ion batteries. And that could be happening today. So I'm happy about those things. Other than that, it's spring. There's blue skies outside. And, it's a good start.
Let's talk about that helicopter. I did see the footage of them dropping the protective cover. And, JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and NASA are good at posting footage, but not great at putting together videos. So others take their clips and make little videos out of them. So the news is trickling in slowly but surely. But this helicopter, as you pointed out, is solar powered with lithium batteries. It's going to fly just for like 90 seconds, right, at a time. That's all it's got use for. Then it's going to land and repower, hunker down for the night, keep its batteries from freezing, and then fly again the next day. How long is a Martian day, John?
I think Martian day is a little bit longer than ours. Not by much. So it could be 30 hours, could be 25 hours, but it's a little bit longer than ours.
And of course, the sunlight is weaker because Mars is further from the sun.
Correct.
But there's less atmosphere, so you get less losses from the atmosphere.
There's also significantly less mass of Mars. So Mars, I believe, is 2/3 the mass of Earth, which means its gravity is significantly lesser. I think like 1/4 at the surface. So
yeah, 1/3.
1/3. Okay, so the lift is much lesser. The solar panels that are on that little robot. So it's a tiny robot. I think it may be this big. Could be a little longer. The solar cells are like 32% efficient cells. They're made out of a group in Arizona, I think. And the battery's small, but it's just neat. The rover itself is like plutonium powered. It's like a nuclear reactor inside of that thing, I think. But we got a little solar powered helicopter, and that's just, I don't know, on Mars. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, they've effectively designed nuclear batteries for these rovers, and it's a pack of radioactive material that creates heat, and then they make electricity from the heat. And
it's not like steam. Is it like, what's the actual movement to drive current? Is it extracting the heat like with a thermo thing layer where it absorbs the heat and turns it into electricity? Because we can do that. We can literally straight up absorb heat, turn it into kWhs.
We'll have to get our listeners to tell us how that works, because I don't have a clue. But it has nothing to do with steam, which is a good thing, because that would be challenging given how cold it is on Mars. It's extremely cold all the time. It's like Antarctica. And so I wish those first humans that go to Mars very well. I want them to do this, but I don't want to be among them.
What if you're like, 75 and, you're done with life. You've driven the Tesla 500,000 miles, not 75, like 82. Let's say you're 82, you're bored with it. You want to do something different. Would you make it your last flight?
I would consider that. Yeah. Especially given how good virtual reality is going to get, where when you're in transit and when you're not doing a spacewalk or a Mars walk, so to speak, you could have some really good entertainment going on. I mean, I think VR is going to get as good or better as reality, and we are going to become like Borg. unfortunately, our children are already becoming like that due to the
Or
COVID pandemic, um, spending their life and living vicariously through their screens. But I do like to say, John, that I get so much out of these interactions on Zoom, and so I am grateful for the technology that we have,
Mhm.
because I do a lot of interviews and clean power hours on Zoom, and it is an outlet, because let's face it, we have relatively less social contact because of the pandemic. Of course, things are going to clear up this summer, and it'll be a new day, and we're going to go to Texas and see some rockets take off, hopefully. um, Speaking of rockets, I don't have a story on this, a formal link, but I was listening to a story about the Electron rocket,
Mhm.
and they have a next gen called the Neutron. So they recently had a successful launch. They launched a satellite, and they're doing launches for some legit customers like the U.S. military now. It and they're getting into reusability. So it's great to see another company actually launching stuff and not just talking about launching stuff like uh, a certain Blue Origins. Um,
Oh.
and so
They got a
anyway,
rocket though that lands and rises beautifully. I read something recently on them that said that their transition was too aggressive. They were trying to go big fast because Bezos, he's one of the richest on the planet now. So they were trying to go too big, too fast, and they tried to transition from the little rocket to a big rocket while skipping an intermediary stage that would have given them all the knowledge they needed to go. And
yeah,
they brought in this new guy, and apparently that's what has slowed them down a tiny bit to getting into the big rocket world. Their little unit can, I think, get to space and land vertically and do that. But of course, just getting to space isn't the goal.
yeah. So I'm going to put their website on screen just because this is a cool company. It's a New Zealand based company called Rocket Lab. And
104 satellites launched.
yeah, 100 satellites launched. That's legit, man. And they're going to have a launch site in Virginia in the United States. And so they're going to be launching from several different sites around the world. And they're going after reusability. Their thing is printing the parts and pieces, including the engines, using 3D printing.
Awesome.
And the founder, I heard an interview with the founder. He comes from the high performance sailing industry and materials industries. He was working for a government lab in New Zealand prior to launching Rocket Lab. But anyway, they use carbon fiber as their main structural technology, which is super light, right? But it has some other challenges that I learned about, including electrostatic accumulation. Apparently, electrostatics are a problem when you're traveling through the atmosphere. And he tried to explain how they're solving that problem, but I didn't understand it. So anyway, we better get into the real news. And I have a special announcement on the Solar Podcast Live. I have two upcoming episodes that I'm really excited about, John. One is Andy Klump, which is next Tuesday. These are free live events that we do at Continental Energy Solutions. You do have to register. So there's a register button right there, right? And then that just takes you to this little Zoom webinar page. Put in your credentials. It's free for all. It is limited to 100 attendees, but Andy Klump is such a stud, and he's a veteran of the industry. He's been in the industry for 20 years, including with Trina Solar, right? So he has real street cred. His company, Clean Energy Associates, does a lot of third-party reviews. They're working with manufacturers on quality assurance, and they will help EPCs and developers with product selection. And then, of course, they do project engineering. And Andy and I are going to break down improving solar and storage IRR or ROI. So really looking forward to this event next week. So check it out at cesnrg.com/events. And then my April event with the live is going to be Peter Kelly Detweiler. I don't have a landing page up for this, but Peter Kelly Detweiler, check him out. He is also an industry veteran, and he has a new book coming out called The Energy Switch. And we are going to be talking about the book. He sent me a couple chapters. There's tons of great, very practical content on solar and storage in the little bit that I've read so far. So check out The Energy Switch. It is available for pre-purchase on Amazon. And then finally, I wanted to give a special shout out to Jim Spano, who was on my show last week, and we just dropped that video this morning. And Jim is what I call an OG, an original gangster in the New Jersey and Atlantic region solar industry. He is a true solar veteran. He helped build the industry in New Jersey, and he's the largest utility scale developer in New Jersey. He has his fingers in 30 operating companies. He is an amazing entrepreneur, and the company that we talk about most that's in his portfolio is MyResi. So check out myresi.com, which is a virtual power plant company. He has a partnership with the battery maker that is owned by Shell. What is the name of that company, John?
Battery maker that's owned
Sonnen.
By...
It came
that's right. You're right.
Yeah. So he has a partnership with Sonnen. And Peter Kelly Detweiler also writes about Sonnen. So Sonnen is going after the VPP big time. But we talk about the grid debacle, that you and I and everybody else has covered so much in the news because it was truly a debacle for the citizens of Texas. And now what's happening is there's a lot of utilities and other entities in the energy business that are going bankrupt because of that debacle. And so as a hedge against future debacles, Shell is going hard after VPPs. They see the light, and they're going to make this free for consumers. So you get a solar array and a storage facility, and then you get lower energy bills. And that's how, from the consumer's perspective, they're going to pay for it, so to speak. But the battery is then going to be used as a virtual power plant and provide grid services also. And that's how the third party financier is going to fund these projects. And so I think they're talking about 40,000 installations in Texas alone. Peter Kelly Detweiler talks about a big Sonnen installation in Utah. And I don't know, before this in the VPP world, John, I thought of Vermont, right? Because Green Mountain Power has gone after this VPP world pretty hard, right?
Well, Green Mountain GMP has done it quite a bit, and I'm very fond of what they've done up there. They've done it mostly with Tesla, and they've done it with a central management of them reaching out to the hardware and using Tesla's hardware across their grid. And they've done a lot of good work. Sonnen has the network in the battery. And so when you're buying a Sonnen, you're buying a piece of hardware that itself could connect straight to a whole bunch of other Sonnens. That Arizona community, there's other Sonnen communities that exist elsewhere. And it's literally called Sonnen Community. And that's the neatest thing in the world to me, is that if you have a neighborhood of batteries, if you have a whole little city of batteries that are surrounded by a bunch of Sonnens, some solar behind a substation, they're pretty well protected. And sorry about that. There's a car alarm going on around me.
Yeah, hopefully it's not your Tesla getting broken into.
Yeah, hopefully not. Nope, just went off.
Speaking of Teslas getting broken into, do you use the that feature, the security feature where it has a camera that'll record if there's an incident? What is that called?
So there's two of them. There's Sentry Cam, and then there's the one that runs while you're driving. I shut off Sentry Cam because I looked at 100 videos and not one of them was ever real. And 98% of them were people walking by the car 6 feet away in a parking garage. And it's like, okay, that's annoying. Yeah. So I just shut it off. But going back to Sonnen. Yeah, so Sonnen Community. Yeah. Sonnen Community is pretty awesome. It's VPP stuff. Tesla's doing more VPPs in Australia now. I almost put a VPP Tesla article up there. But I really think that distributed energy storage is going to come up a lot stronger than the big boys like to pretend. Like everybody's thinking it's going to be big solar. And I think distributed is going to be much bigger. Obviously my career is here, but just like this article, I mean, this is the perfect article to segue into. This is Germany. They said 70%, right there at the top, 70% of residential solar these days comes with batteries. I speak with a partner here in Mass that builds 50 to 70 projects a month, Resi, and he says 60% of them are getting energy storage. Now, Mass has an incentive specifically for residential energy storage. We call it Connected Solutions, and it's a demand response program. It might be connected to our Clean Peak standard. I don't know exactly on the back end, but I do know Resi people get paid $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year for a battery, and they get it paid off in 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. It's coming. They're going to be part of the grid, man. It's going to be huge. VPPs are it, dude.
I agree. And I'm excited about 40,000 projects in Texas, but this is the headline here is more than 300,000 battery storage systems installed in German households. As we've pointed out on this show, and you have done a great job educating me, John, about the Germans and how far ahead they are, so to speak, with building integrated solar, right? It's becoming a real thing. We don't see buildings clad in solar panels here. And anyway, the Germans, we were just talking about Sonnen, that's a German company, got bought by Shell, which is a Dutch company. But obviously the Germans understand this, that the VPP is a good thing as well. And what Jim points out on in my interview with him is that it's a virtuous cycle. It's not only good for the homeowner, it's good for the grid operator. It's a win-win. And yes, you then can have power when the grid goes down, but the likelihood of the grid going down gets way smaller when you have these virtual power plants, right, for the grid operator to lean on really hard in a stressful moment if they need to. And I think of it as like muscle fibers, right? Each individual, look at those guns. Each individual battery.
Thank you, Tim.
I need to go to the gym, I think. Each individual, actually, I am running an ultra marathon this weekend. It's the hardest race of my lifetime, 30 miles of very hilly trail running. So I'm no total wimp. My strength is in my legs though. So these residential batteries are like muscle fibers though, John, right? Individually, they're nothing to write home about, but to collectively, they're extremely powerful for the community and for the utility operator.
That's a great way of saying it. I like to have another analogy I use with solar panel manufacturing factories and battery factories and power lines and the Gaia, Earth coming alive. And, it's so many parallels that we're building a living thing on this surface of this planet to complement ourselves. And that's an interesting muscle fibers for the average home. What a great analogy. The strength for the nation starts in your home. Pretty cool.
Yep.
And that kind of drives to this next story. I mean, and that's what this next thing is. Your home battery is one thing. That's sweet. But you and I, Tim, we've got a battery that's 4 times bigger than the standard home battery, like the Sonnens. I think some Sonnens go up to 20.
Yeah, so that's true. They have 20 kWh batteries. Yeah.
But the standard battery is 13 to 15. That's really the industry standard I've seen. It's a 5-hour battery or 5 kW battery with a 13 to 50 kWh. Seems to be what most people are buying these days.
Yeah.
And so this one is taking your car and making it be part of the battery. And that's a question.
But you gotta tell us what the story is, John, because we have listeners, not just viewers.
Good point.
I know.
By the way, to the listeners, Wesley, thanks for telling me that you were listening. So that was kind of cool. But what we're talking about is that Pacific Gas and Electric, big utility, might be one of the nation's largest out in California. They have some massive issues with fires, really rough out there. They went BK recently. But for the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've been paying electric car users to plug their car into the grid. And they've been learning a bunch. They've got now a third round where they're going to invite 3,000 cars. They're going to give them a base pay of like $250. And then you get a fee whenever your car is tapped into in order to help the grid. And this might be one to charge your car between 11 and 1 when the power grid might be generating more than it can use. 2, it might be to pull a little juice in the evening from that 6 to 10 p.m. window where the grid's running a little funky sometimes. And it matters because California is pushing a 100% new EVs for new cars by 2035. And the volume of batteries that will be in those cars is going to be massive. Like it can probably power the state for X number of hours, not minutes, like 12 hours. And if we don't use it, we're fools. And if we don't use it, we're probably going to be hurting ourselves because we'll probably become dependent upon it. These cars and electric vehicles are going to be so important, so massive, that we're probably going to be dependent upon them. I don't know this, but I feel it. It's going to attach to our house. And that might be why Elon Musk doesn't want to allow V to G, because his best customer to buy a Tesla Powerwall is a Tesla car owner. Who knows? Maybe he just wants to sell more batteries. I don't know that. I know they don't make as much money as people think when selling to the grid, and their battery usage might get worn. But it's coming. I know it's coming. Too many people want it. It's too valuable. Resilience is too important. I like this test. It's going to grow.
Yeah, the V to G thing is definitely going to be a thing. And I just put your other electric vehicle story on screen, which I think we've shown this photo before, but the EV is much older than people realize, right? It was invented in the early 1900s when automobiles were just coming on. And but yeah, I don't claim to be able to see inside Elon's brain. There's a lot going on there, obviously, and I just because he says V to G is not a thing doesn't mean it's not a thing. I think V to G is an awesome thing in theory. It's just a question of how hard is it to make it work, or how expensive is it to make it work.
What I think his point is closer to is that it's not worth as much money as we think it is, because grid services are a super competitive market, and you're not going to get rich using your car. It's going to be, 150, $200 a year. Listen, a BMW owner doesn't care about $250. They're just thinking, oh, this is cool. My car is plugged in. I like the idea of it for resiliency. Texas
exactly. It's all about resiliency. I don't care about the income stream.
Correct.
When the grid crashes, though, man, that 75 kWh of battery is worth gold.
Gold. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's what it comes down to in my mind.
How many kWh was the Frictal electric car? That's what I want to know. Says it could go 100 miles.
Well, it's probably a much lighter car, and it's maxing out at 25 miles per hour. So that's the key. Your Tesla can probably go 1,000 miles at 20 miles an hour.
I wonder.
Because your speeds go up greatly. Maybe not 1,000, probably 20% more. I just thought that was a cool unit. I like that they guaranteed a 100-mile range in 1909, and it was roughly a $53,000 car, which is cool as well. So I just, 1909, not bad.
Totally. I think I mentioned this on the show recently, but the invention of the internal combustion engine has backfired on humanity in so many negative ways. Yes, it was a leap forward from horse and buggy, and I understand why we went whole hog into the internal combustion engine, but it's been a disaster for climate chaos, and we reap the benefits now in the form of the Texas grid outage, which absolutely, I have some friends who try to poke me in the eye and say, look, Texas is freezing, Tim. There's no climate. There's no global warming. Well, it's not global warming, John, right? It's climate chaos. And there absolutely is climate chaos. And it's both these extreme events of heat and cold. It's not just one thing. And floods and fires and droughts and sea level rise, et cetera, et cetera. So just another happy day in America.
Greenhouses.
All right.
Greenhouses.
Greenhouses. Okay. You got a good looking dude in a greenhouse here. That's for sure.
Farmer dude, I like the greenhouse research that's constantly ever going on. So the thing here
That dude's got some guns too.
Well, I bet you if you're picking up and throwing down trees all day long, you're going to get pretty strong after a while. I type in the spreadsheet, so maybe I have good fingertip dexterity. That's about it. I go jogging. I don't do ultra marathons, so I don't know how useful I'm going to be in the Mad Max world. We'll find out. Hopefully, I can figure something out. Maybe my great personality will help. So really what this experiment was to see if we could both extract electricity from the sunlight and grow crops. And I've been watching this research for 5 years. There's like these pink greenhouses out there, there's yellow greenhouses, there's blue greenhouses, and this is just another one. And I just like bringing them up, showing them off, showing that they ran the numbers, they grew the stuff, and yet again, another group is finding that they're not losing that much food growth, that much nutrition, that much productivity, if any at all, while letting at the lowest level the greenhouse power itself. So that's one cool level. But the next level is that these structures can be big. And if we moved our food production incrementally, slowly inside, and started building, robot structured buildings that are just infinitely long, this starts affecting how we grow our food and how we can power ourselves in farming with agrivoltaics. And if, we build a structure that's just big enough for a single tractor to fit inside of it, and that's how big it is. Why not grow some corn inside? Why not grow some wheat inside? I mean, these are the big ones. Why not grow the soy inside, the rice inside?
So
then
little known factoid. I was a botanist before I was a solar energy professional. And the thing about greenhouses, John, is that they get really hot really quickly. There's way more sunlight and heat impacting the plants than the plants actually need. And so you can dim the light. And greenhouses, many of them have these built-in shading. At the University of Wisconsin, where I went to graduate school, they had this complex system of pumping foam beads into the double paned glass ceilings of the greenhouses to cause shade when they had plants that they were trying to grow. Now, most crops, granted, are full sunlight plants like corn. You want corn out in broad daylight. But if you're growing strawberries, you don't want that out in full daylight. It will burn in many, and that's why strawberries are like a spring crop, right? They're not a midsummer crop. They can't handle that midsummer sunlight. They get burned and they die. So you put solar cells in glass, right? You make building integrated solar panels. That's what this story is about, right, John?
Yep.
They're putting solar cells inside glass, and then they're translucent, so the light you're still getting light on the plants, and it's a win-win. You can generate electricity and grow crops. So
and we're getting better at different ways of putting the solar cells. We're experimenting in a lot of different paths. I've seen perovskites that get lighter and darker based on humidity and equations so that they can test it. And they're doing that for buildings, for you and I, for just solar windows. But there's also different colors just to straight up absorb various wavelengths. So, we're going to figure it out. We're going to grow, we're doing that internal in Europe, Northern Europe. We did a lettuce story recently where a group has robots growing lettuce, and it was purple and it was all stacked up inside. we're going to keep playing with this, and we're going to make some massive volumes of food inside of controlled structures, and we're going to figure out how to roboticize them on multiple levels. And I'm just interested in watching how that's going to happen. I see a lot of potential there. Yeah, and then, so I just threw in this article because it's complementary to it in some way. It's just more agrivoltaics. This is Enel, big developer, one of the largest in the world, and they're just doing a lot of R&D on agro. And I thought the article was cool. They did a bunch of cool research. Specifically, they're talking about retrofitting already existing solar, which wasn't originally designed, which is cool because, we got 400 gigawatts of ground mounted solar around the world. If they could retrofit it and do something, that'd be sweet. But within this article, and it was the reason that really caught my attention because everything else was normalish, they reference, we're thinking about raising rabbits inside of a solar field. And so that was the first time I got to think about solar plus rabbits as an agrivoltaic form. And so there you go.
Yeah.
So, and they noticed in about 2 or 3 years, we're going to get a whole bunch of good research from them. So
just got to keep the foxes out.
I like it.
Spain, the more I learn about Spain, John, they are a leader in the solar industry in many ways. I think they're at 20% of grid power coming from solar and wind now.
Wow.
And they have many manufacturers. We have a Spanish developer called Acciona developing a 120 megawatt project in northern Illinois right now. And so in the process of them finding contractors, they've issued this RFP to some Spanish manufacturers that are also solar developers. So there's some vertically integrated manufacturers. I can't remember the name, but there's a single axis tracker maker in Spain that is also an EPC. So anyway, I'm not surprised that you found an interesting story on agrivoltaics from Spain, because they are definitely going after it and on quote unquote the bleeding edge. And probably they're eating the rabbits, I'm guessing. I don't know.
I assume so.
And Americans aren't real fond of rabbits as food, but of course you can get fur from them as well. And the Australians have a plethora of rabbits. Have you ever seen the stories about how rabbits took over Australia?
Yes, I have. So
it was an ecological disaster. It still
yes,
is, I think.
Yes. There are actually certain areas of Australia are having a mouse plague right now, and they have been begging for a flooding so that they could drown the mice. And I think flooding is now struck. Like Australia just has some fires, flooding, mice. I mean, that's like,
yeah.
Oh man, those are some rough people. They work hard. Something.
Well, you found an awesome map of offshore wind in the United States. I have not seen this. I've heard bits and pieces, of course, of some of these projects. So, who published this map? American Clean Power. Never heard of them.
I mean, I've seen their website before. I've seen their logo. I just loved seeing this map. I mean, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And it's just so neat. So neat to see where we're building all this. And it's going to get bigger. This is the beginnings of it. We're going to have as much wind as solar in the long game, possibly more wind than solar. I don't know. I think wind might be the bulk energy producer, whereas solar will be the more consistent electricity producer. And we'll figure out some risk variance based on the intermixing of the two and our broader interconnection regions. And I expect wind to actually be, say, 50 to 60% of electricity, whereas solar will be like 30 to 40. And then hydro and nuclear will push us over 100 because we'll have excess wind and solar, and it'll be super cheap. We'll figure out how to use that extra 20, 30%, whatever it is. But I'm just super psyched at the volume. this is going to be whole new industries, Tim. If you got bored with this solar gig and you wanted to just do something new, I guarantee, like, you're a smart guy. You could figure out how to make money somewhere on the East Coast here. Just there's going to be like 2, 3 major places. Like in New Bedford, the city where I live, they have an office. They have something that seems like they're going to be launching hardware out of here. New York is pushing hard for it. New Jersey is, and probably Virginia as well. But I know Jersey and New York are both pushing hard to have manufacturing, training. They're not just going for selling some wind farms. They're talking about setting up the supply chains that take care of this. And buy yourself a helicopter and become an O&M guy, and just like chop 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 every day. That'd be the best drone picture in the world, dude. Come on.
I
Oh,
visited a wind tower manufacturing plant here in Central Illinois a few years back,
neat.
and they take these sheets. They're 10 feet wide, and I think 20 feet long sheets of steel, and roll them into these, the donuts, the big steel donuts that they then stack into towers. It was really cool. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of offshore wind, and obviously it's now really gaining steam. Look at all these projects. This is like 2 dozen projects, and these aren't small projects. These are all 100 megawatt plus, and some of them are gigawatt scale. This Dominion Energy thing down in Virginia is 2.6 gigawatts. That's a lot of power.
Massachusetts just put out a new 1.6 gigawatt RFP. It's not
It's
on
so
the list
curious to
yet.
see this whole cluster though around Vineyard. This is off of Cape Cod
Hmm.
to off the south coast, as you like to say, right?
Yeah.
Um, is there just like really good wind resources there, or what is it about this area that has made the wind developers come there?
So good wind resources. Well, that's one, because the wind comes across. That's where we get northeasters. You got the stuff coming up the coast, stuff coming across the top, and so we get a nice intersection. But this might be bigger. It's really far from Cape Cod and the rich people, and it's way south. So it's like 20, 30, 40 miles off the coast. I don't know the exact visuals, but I do know that
Yeah,
way back in the day, lots of people pushed back very aggressively against.
yeah, including the Kennedys. Um, our friend Ted Kennedy, I think, came out against. What was that? Was that Cape Wind, that first onshore
Maybe,
project?
yeah, yeah.
Um, it was nearshore wind, right? So it was visually impactful, so to speak, of people that lived on the coast there. And I have very fond memories of visiting Cape Cod as a child. I went there 2 summers for vacation with my cousins, and I did a lot of golfing and going to the beach. You had to take a boat to go to the beach, which I'd never experienced before. It was like there's oh, we lost you, John.
Nope, touching things. Sorry, sorry about that.
Anyway, we've got just 3 minutes left here, so we better do announcements.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so we better just go into that. Sorry to cut it short, folks,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
c'est la vie. We're both busy professionals. So, John,
Yep.
how do people find you, the commercial solar guy?
Well, these days we're so busy that you're going to find me hidden, hiding away, trying to get some work done as best I can, because there's just a lot of stuff going on, and so it's staying organized. But if you want to add to my workload because you have an interest in a solar project, you can go to our website, commercialsolarguy.com. We're always posting news. Where most efficient solar panels. That's our podcast from last week. And that's the best place to get in touch with us. Go to the contact form. You can get in touch with us. We'll build projects for you. We'll help you develop your land. Whatever interests you. We do a lot of different work. We're a general contractor in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and we'll be extending that to New York, Pennsylvania, a couple spots in the Northeast. So, commercial solar guy. Type it into the Google. You will find us.
Excellent. Well, I'm Tim Montague, your co host. You can reach me at cesnrg.com/podcast or /events. I often neglect to highlight the events. We do a live solar podcast every month. And as I mentioned earlier in the show today, Andy Klump is going to be our guest with Clean Energy Associates in next week. And then on the podcast, which I'm doing 2 of these on average now, we're just covering all kinds of topics like solar and storage, like DC lighting, like the EV opportunity, bifacial trackers, and then, of course, the Clean Power Hour with me and John Weaver, the commercial solar guy. All of this content is right there at cesnrg.com. So check it out. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, that's the way that more people will get this content. Okay. As the channel floats, all boats will float. And we are on a rocket ship to a clean energy transition. And it's a good thing for everyone. It's good for the economy, clean jobs, and you and me, John. So let's do it. I want to thank you for another Clean Power Hour and have a wonderful day, John, and all of our listeners.